What if one battle could change the entire course of history? What if the fate of nations rested on a single, blood-soaked field? On June 18, 1815, the Battle of Waterloo would decide not just the future of a man, but the future of an entire continent. A battle so pivotal, its echoes are still felt today. The stakes were higher than ever. This was the end of an empire, the fall of a legend, and the birth of a new Europe. It had been over a decade of war. Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who had risen from obscurity to dominate Europe, was on the verge of losing it all. His once vast empire was crumbling. After being exiled to the island of Elba, it seemed as though his reign had come to an end. But Napoleon, ever the strategist, would not be forgotten so easily. In 1815, he returned to France, eager to reclaim his throne. His return sparked fear across Europe. His enemies, who had fought so hard to dethrone him, scrambled to stop him. Napoleon's comeback meant war once more, and the world watched as the greatest military genius of his time prepared to face his final test. The stage was set for the Battle of Waterloo, one of the most decisive confrontations in military history. Napoleon gathered an army of 73,000 men, a formidable force. He moved quickly, knowing that time was not on his side. His target? The Allied forces in Belgium, led by the Duke of Wellington, Britain's finest military commander. With 68,000 men, Wellington had his own task: hold off Napoleon long enough for reinforcements to arrive. But he was not alone in his struggle. Behind him, another force was moving: Prussia, under the command of Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher, who had one goal: to crush Napoleon once and for all. Wellington knew this would be no easy fight. Napoleon was a master of battlefield tactics, and his forces were seasoned in battle. The Battle of Waterloo would be their final showdown, a test of skill, nerve, and strategy. Wellington's men took positions on the ridge near the village of Waterloo, a spot that offered a tactical advantage, but the ground was muddy and the weather wasn't in their favor. The weather would be a challenge for both armies. Heavy rain had turned the battlefield into a quagmire, and Napoleon knew that if he didn't act quickly, the Prussians would arrive. The timing was critical. The battle would begin at dawn, and what happened in those first few hours would determine the outcome. The battle erupted with terrifying force. Napoleon's artillery thundered across the field as the French forces advanced. The ground shook as French soldiers surged forward, hoping to break the Allied lines, but Wellington's troops held their ground. For hours the battle raged, each side giving no quarter, fighting for every inch of land. The French tried to break through the center of Wellington's position, but the British forces, under heavy fire, refused to yield. It was more than just a battle between armies. It was a battle for survival. Soldiers on both sides, many of them mere farmers and tradesmen, now faced their greatest test. For them, the Battle of Waterloo was not just about a king or emperor. It was about their future, their families, their very existence. Men died by the thousands, their bodies swallowed by the mud and blood of the battlefield. As the hours passed, the battle reached its peak. But the tide of war was about to shift. Just when it seemed like Napoleon might break through, something crucial happened. The Prussians arrived. General Blücher's forces, battered but determined, began to pour into the battlefield, attacking the French from the rear. Napoleon, caught between two armies, realized his dream of European domination was slipping away. The French army, already worn from hours of brutal fighting, was now caught in a deadly pincer. Wellington, ever the tactician, pressed the attack, while the Prussians closed in from the east. Napoleon's forces were stretched thin, and it became clear this was no longer his fight to win. Napoleon had fought his way through countless battles, but the Battle of Waterloo was different. Here, against all odds, his forces began to break. The French tried to regroup, but the arrival of Blücher's Prussians had shifted the momentum. Napoleon's cavalry, once his prized force, was overwhelmed. His Imperial Guard, the elite of his army, was now retreating in disarray. The dream of a French-dominated Europe was collapsing. As the French army crumbled, Napoleon's fate was sealed. the Battle of Waterloo was over, and with it the Napoleonic era came to a devastating close. Napoleon, once the master of Europe, was forced to retreat. The Allies had won, but at a great cost. Thousands of soldiers lay dead or wounded, and the battlefield was littered with the broken dreams of empire. But while Napoleon's defeat marked the end of his reign, it was also the beginning of a new chapter for Europe. If you enjoyed this journey through one of history's most pivotal moments, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for more incredible stories from the past. History is full of battles, and each one tells us something about who we are and where we're headed.